Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I am your host, Eric Smith, and today I'm talking about C.H.U.D Lives, a tribute anthology. This is compiled by Eric S. Brown and edited by Joe Mynhardt from Crystal Lake Publishing. There's your back cover, and well, as it says, it's a tribute anthology to the movie C.H.U.D. C.H.U.D's? C.H.U.D? It's up there on a shelf somewhere. Um, Pretty sure it's just C.H.U.D, which stands for, in case you don't know, Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers. But it also stands for something else that I don't recall off the top of my head. And what we have here is just a bunch of stories by a bunch of authors that take place in and around the movie C.H.U.D. And what was I going to say? Oh, this is the first book in my latest book bundle, which is, I'm reading 5 books in a row that are all anthologies based on intellectual properties. So I guess before we get into it, for the too long didn't watch folks, I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. I really liked it. So now, first of all, I'm just going to give you some of the authors. Well, first, there's an introduction by David Drake, and then an interview with the late Andrew Boname, not sure how you pronounce his name, Bonime. So an interview with him. Then we get into the stories, and we have authors like Nick Cato, Ryan C. Thomas, Tim Wagoner, Mort Castle, David Bernstein or Stein, Chad Lutsky, and Jonathan Mayberry and Eugene Johnson wrote together. And then the last thing we have is an interview with Parnell Hall, who is the screenwriter, I believe. And then there's a about the contributors at the end, about the authors. So, as I said, I very, very much liked this book. It wasn't perfect. With most anthologies, you have your ups and downs. There are a couple very, very low downs, 1.5 very low downs, and more highs than anything else, in my opinion. And as I said, these stories take place sort of just before ish the events of the movie, and then in some cases well after the events of the movie, depending on how you look at it, like 10 or so years after the events of the movie. And then a lot of the stories take place during the time period of the movie itself. And we have stories that involve characters from the movie. And then we have, and in some cases, well, I guess in all the cases of those, it's expanding on the stories of those characters. So things that, we didn't see during the events of the movie. Or in the case of the first story, I think it takes place technically before the events of the movie, but bleeding into the events of the movie. Now, I should say, I have not seen the movie in decades, and the only thing I remember about it is the basic premise. And I suppose I'm not giving anything away when I say the basic premise is, well, just in case there's anybody watching this who hasn't seen the movie, doesn't know what it is. As I said, Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers is what C.H.U.D stands for, and that's what you've got. I'm not going to say where they came from. I'm not going to give that sort of thing away. But there are these monsters coming out of the sewers, sometimes still in the sewers because people are going down there, coming out of the sewers, killing and eating people. And that's basically what I knew. I remembered what the cause was, but I couldn't remember any of the characters, any of the actual storyline from the movie. And I think the anthology succeeds in telling us stories where that works, or stories that work for anybody in my position. So as long as you know the basic premise of the movie, I think you're going to be completely fine reading these stories. Even though some of them are about characters in the movie, you don't need to know them from the movie. And of course, the stories that have completely original characters and original stuff going on, as long as you understand what a C.H.U.D is, you're going to be fine with those stories. I really enjoyed the original stuff, the original character stories, because we get to see how people outside the movie are reacting to the C.H.U.Ds, and we have stories where people don't know that the C.H.U.Ds exist, and so are horrified when they learn about the C.H.U.Ds and are faced by the C.H.U.Ds. But there are some stories that are set after the movie where people know about the C.H.U.Ds. Word has gotten out, and so people are aware of this threat, and what basically they know what happened in the movie. Not every detail, but they know about a lot of what went on, what the C.H.U.Ds are, where they came from, and so we're seeing sort of the aftermath of that. Now, on the downside, Mort Castle has a very short, barely a story called That's Entertainment, and I did not like it at all. I get where it's coming from, but it did absolutely nothing for me. So that's the lowest of the low, and then the sort of half down there is the Jonathan Mayberry Eugene Johnson story, which is called You Will Never Leave Harlan Alive. It takes place about 10 or so years, I think, after the events of the movie. It features one of the main characters from the movie, but off the top of my head, two very bad continuity errors. And that just can spoil a story for me. In a full-length novel, it's bad enough, but in a short story, it pulls me out, and I'm flipping pages to see if maybe I remembered something wrong. No, I didn't. They're contradicting things. So that really spoiled the story for me. And just a little fun thing here with the publication of this book. It goes from page 5. No, wait. Let's go back. It goes from page 3 to page 5, followed by page 5, followed by page 7 and page 7, followed by page 9 and page 9. So after page 3, we now get the same page number on two facing pages. So page 4 doesn't exist. And it goes from 5 all the way to, let's see. Okay. I know it's in the 2s, the 200s. And I'm sure this is very exciting for you to see me looking at this like this. Well, there's 245, 245, 247, 247. And 248, 248. Wait, that can't be right. 247, 248. They're all odd numbers up to this point. 247, 247, 248. That looks like an 8, but it could just be 249, because then we have 250, 251, 252, 253 from that point on. I don't remember exactly when I noticed that. Oh, I do know. I keep track on Goodreads, and so I do put in the page number I'm at, and then it'll tells you, what percentage of the book you finished. And I was doing that. I was checking to see the page number, and I noticed that both the facing pages had the same page number. A very weird printing error. But that's just a fun little thing. The stories themselves aren't like the text of the stories aren't repeated. It's simply the page numbers. Also, I'm not a huge fan of this cover. The bottom part isn't quite so bad, but this just looks like bad digital art, in my opinion. And we do somewhere in here, I believe, there's a pretty nice illustration right there. But overall, I found the stories very entertaining. Now, when I'm reading, I post on Facebook whatever book I am currently reading. As soon as I pick a new book, I set it up, I take a picture of it, I post it on Facebook with currently reading. And when I posted this, I got a comment from writer and director, all around wonderful guy, my man crush, Mike Lombardo, and he pointed out that apparently the authors were told no swearing and no gore. And he thought that was very odd, considering that C.H.U.D is an R-rated movie with plenty of both. And then he wanted to know what I thought once I finished it. And I don't know that I would have noticed the lack of swearing, but since he mentioned it, it did seem very apparent, and there were scenes where it felt like swearing would have been appropriate. And if the characters in the movie were swearing a lot, then the characters in the book should have been swearing a lot. That's just character continuity. But I disagreed with him about the gore, because this isn't extreme horror by any means. And I said this to him. I said, it's not, Edward Lee stuff. And I wouldn't expect Edward Lee levels of mayhem and extreme gore and things. But there are plenty of limbs and heads ripped off and blood squirting everywhere. It's maybe not as violent as the movie. And again, I have not seen it in decades, so I don't remember how violent it is. But these stories seemed plenty violent to me. There's definitely blood squirting out of neck stumps and all sorts of just chunks being ripped out of people with C.H.U.D jaws and entrails flowing. So I don't think it was lacking in gore. It was definitely lacking in swearing. I don't think there's a single swear word in the entire book. Any swear words. Not even like a damn or a shit. I don't think they're there, and there's definitely no F-bombs. But that did not stop me from enjoying these stories. So that's C.H.U.D Lives, compiled by Eric S. Brown, edited by Joe Mynhardt, and 4 out of 5 stars. I think if you're a fan of the movie, you're going to enjoy this book. And I think if you've never seen the movie, but you want to read some mostly good stories with some great killer creatures, and maybe it'll push you to finally watch the movie. Yeah, I think this is good for horror fans in general. C.H.U.D Lives. That's that. Question, I suppose, for the video seems obvious. Have you seen the movie C.H.U.D? What do you think of it? And again, this will be the third time I've said it. I haven't seen it in decades. Loved it when I saw it. I have the Scream Factory, I think it's a Scream Factory edition, right up there. And I'll have to watch it again sometime soon. October's coming up, so I'm going to try to watch a ton of horror movies. We'll see if that happens. But yeah, I'm a fan of the movie. I have not seen C.H.U.D 2, Bud the Chud. I've seen parts of it, but I don't think I've seen the whole thing from start to finish. But what about you? Let me know in the comments below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here at the Low Budget Review Show. Please like, share, and subscribe, all the usual YouTube stuff. And if you care to follow me on other social media, I'll have links for my Instagram and Blue Sky in the description below. That's all I've got for you. This has been the Low Budget Review Show. I have been Eric Smith, and until next time, read more books.